Hello, this is Mr. Jordan. In this first video, I'm going to go over, or not this first video, in this video, I'm going to go over some of the things underneath the section entitled Unit 1 Outcomes, Assignment, Requirements, and Assessment. This is for week 1. So a basic explanation of how this class is going to work is that every week we'll have all the assignments, will be there in the different modules. You'll just need to have all that done by the end of the week. So Friday, right, by 11:59 p.m., and then you won't need to worry about the stuff for the next week, until Monday, right? I don't expect people to do that kind of weekly work over the weekend, except for, working on your papers. That'll be a kind of, when when you find the time to work on it, or when you feel like you need to work on it best. But the stuff on the modules, I would say everyone just needs to leave that for throughout the week. Don't move ahead, because some of the stuff might change depending on how the class is functioning, or what is going on. Plus, I won't accept it. So if you go like 4 weeks and you're like, I'm gonna get all four of these weeks done at once, that's not how it works. 1 week at a time. So I mean, it's enough work anyways for just 1 week. Okay, so we're gonna go over, this will be, I don't know how long this video will be, but if you go to the section under modules, under the first week, titled Unit 1 Outcomes, Assignment, Requirements, and Assessment, this will be the basics of the first paper that we were going to do. So this will be kind of the, my cat, this will be the assignment sheet for the paper, but also the rubric by which it will be graded. And this will kind of also be an explanation of how the labor-based grading is going to function, because you'll be able to see the requirements to get whatever grade that you want underneath the assignment sheet. So if you could go with me to Unit 1 Outcomes, Assignment, Requirements, and Assessment. So the basic idea of this is the first, part of Unit 1 is about writing a narrative. So what is a narrative, right? A narrative is a story. We tell stories all the time. We tell a story to our friends, to our family, to our loved ones, to everyone. And we tell stories without even really thinking about it, right? Somebody runs a stop sign and almost hits your car, and you get by them, and you're telling your friends about that event later, right? That's a narrative. It has a beginning, a middle, and end. It has rising action and then a denouement, right, or falling action, right? It has a point to it, right? Like, hey, don't run stop signs, or hey, sometimes driving is dangerous, right? Or hey, I'm not dead. It's great. So we kind of naturally have these ideas of how to be storytellers, and how to relate to the world in a narrative way. And so I don't think that this is a new or groundbreaking thing, right? But sometimes it makes it feel a little bit more complicated if we look at it as a specific assignment. So I want you to know that you already have this built into you, right? You are already a storyteller, right? This is just trying to unlock that in some way. So you'll need to narrate an event or series of events in which they describe settings, utilize descriptive/sensory detail, and evoke a main point to the narrative through such details. So if we go back to our car story, right? If you're describing the setting, right, you're saying, well, it's noon and we were driving to Taco Bell because we were hungry and it's lunchtime, right? All of these things are details about the event, right? We pulled up to the stop sign, we stopped, and we saw this car out of the corner of our eye, a red, pickup truck, right? These are specific details that ground the person listening in the scene. And also, it's just how we tell stories, right? If you were like, well, I went and there was a car and it almost hit us, it's like, okay, thanks for that, I guess, right? It's not very exciting. So you have to think about, when you're telling a narrative, you have to think about the details that ground people within the scene, right? And how do these details kind of play into the main point, right? Part of the story could be, well, this red pickup truck came at us like a red flash, right? And red here kind of having this double purpose of being the actual color of the pickup truck and perhaps symbolizing danger, right? You don't need to explicitly point that out; that's built into it. But those things are kind of part of narratives also. But the fact could be that the pickup truck proved much more dangerous to your small car, right, than if it had been a red, convertible, a smaller car, right? So these kind of details add up to kind of increase or decrease the impact of the story, right? So you need to think about all those things when you're kind of thinking about your narrative. So you need to draft, revise, and edit multiple drafts of writing in various genres to produce textual products that are rhetorically effective with respect to considerations such as organization, style, tone, grammar, mechanics. Basically, what that's saying in so many words is that you need to think about the way that you're utilizing grammar, the way that you're utilizing tone, the way that you're utilizing imagery, all these different things, and how are they working within the narrative. And that's going to require probably more than one draft, and, well, it will require more than one draft, and it will require revision, right? With labor-based assessment, one of the most important things is revision and drafting, right? And I think that is one of the most important things about kind of any discipline or gaining an education is how do we learn how to make ourselves better through small steps, right? Through kind of looking at the mistakes that we made and not being overwhelmed by that, but slowly changing the way that we think about things. And one way to do that is through revision and through drafting, right? And that can be applied to not just English, but all kinds of different disciplines, right? But for our class, right, we're specifically looking at your papers and how to make them better through revision and through drafting, right? And the more that you do that, the better your paper is going to be. So for this assignment, you will produce a 900 to 1200 word essay that is in narrative form, right? So it's an essay, but it's in narrative form. It's an essay that's telling a story, right? So that means that it's not just a story for a story's sake, right? Essays have a point to them, right? This is a story which we'll see is designed for a specific point. This is what is often called creative nonfiction assignment. In other words, while the story you tell is primarily true, you may take creative/fictional liberties in order to make your point, right? So the idea is that the story is mostly true, right? But if you need to change the color of the car from blue to red to make it symbolize danger better, right? You can change the color of the car from blue to red, right? But one of the key things is that this needs to have some element of truth into it or be mostly true, right? You can't just kind of make up this thing like, oh yeah, I saved the president and here's the story about it, right? That's not what this is. This is creative nonfiction. So it needs to be a story, a narrative from your life or from your experience or something you witnessed, right? But you are allowed to take creative liberties with it. You don't have to relay to the reader every single nuance of the speech or things like that. But you do have to kind of get across this narrative in a concise and meaningful way. So if you have any questions about the idea of creative nonfiction, if you are kind of confused about that, don't worry. We'll work through that with the drafts and with the different assignments that we have each week leading up to the final draft. So don't worry too much about that. We'll figure it out. So your audience is another college student. So you have to for audience consideration is important. What will the other college student know? And if you don't know, can you guess something that they know, right? So whenever I am going to be revising, I will be looking at it from the perspective of another college student, right? Because that's the audience you should be writing for. So make sure to consider that whenever you're thinking about, okay, how am I going to tell this story and how do I make it more impactful to perhaps someone like me, right? Like me, like you, right? Like you, the writer, who is a college student. So, and your purpose is to tell them a story that happened to you, that you witnessed, or that you heard about, which illustrates a larger point about a literacy that you have. Here, the word literacy means anything that you are skilled at, have knowledge of, or have a passion for. When we are literate in something, it means that we know enough about it to explain it in detail to others. In other words, you should not tell your reader your main point, but show them that main point through the details you provide in the narrative, right? So this is what we call a literacy narrative. And literacy is something we can explain in detail to another person, right? So one of the things that I'm literate in is literature, right? So if I want to show my knowledge, I might tell a story about, my cat's about to walk in the way. I might tell someone a story about a book I was reading once, right? But something easier to write about may be cooking, right? I'm not literate in cooking necessarily, but maybe you are literate in cooking. You have a lot of cooking knowledge, you're passionate about cooking, and you can explain that to somebody else. So maybe how you show that knowledge is through a story of, I don't know, a time you and your mother were cooking, or father, right? We're cooking an important dish for a family gathering, or a wedding or something like that, right? And so you'll tell us, the narrative will be built around, okay, here's what we did. We cooked it this way, and we added these specific spices, and we cooked it for this specific amount of time. And that demonstrates your knowledge of cooking. And in the end, we're left with this idea, okay, this writer is a good cook, right? And that's the kind of main point of that narrative. And it's illustrated through the literacy. We have knowledge. You have the knowledge and you're sharing it with us, right? It could be about anything. Your literacy, your passion could be about flight. Maybe I've had students write about that before. Maybe a situation in which you are getting your pilot's license. It could be about sports, baseball, football, track, whatever. It could be about chemistry. It could be about computer programming. It could be about any form of art, sculpture. It could be about dog grooming. It's whatever you feel that you are literate in, something that you can explain to another person, and something that you can kind of show people through the narrative form, right? If you have any questions about that, don't hesitate to email me. You can always email me your topic and be like, Mr. Jordan, this is my topic. Is this good for a literacy narrative? And I'll be like, well, what do you know about this topic, right? Are you passionate about it? Can you explain it to me? Do you have stories involving you cooking, or involving you flying, or involving you, fixing a car, right? That you can kind of use to illustrate your knowledge of it, right? And if you don't have those stories, right, it might not be the right topic, right? Because this is a narrative, right? A narrative demonstrating your literacy, right? Literacy narrative. So the final version of the essay should be in MLA format, which just means standard font and spacing, right? 1-inch margins, all that stuff. Your MLA header, I'll provide a link to the MLA website at the top of the modules page when I get the chance. So basically, I don't really care about the font. I would rather you use Times New Roman, just because that's the easiest to read, and as long as you don't change your font throughout the paper, I'm usually good. Don't use some strange cursive font or anything like that. That's why I suggest Times New Roman, but I'm not going to make Times New Roman mandatory. Make sure that you're using double spacing. Make sure that you're using paragraphs. You'd be surprised how often perhaps people forget to use paragraphs and things like that. So you should be familiar with that, but if you're not, like I said, I'll have the MLA format page, link to the page up on under the modules section on the Canvas. The reason why the font doesn't really matter, you're not going to really gain anything by using a larger or smaller font, right, is because this essay has a word limit on it, 900 to 1200 words. So all the assignments in the course are graded. as all the assignments in the course are graded, this will be evaluated through labor-based assessment. So this is where I'm going to kind of get into the idea of what labor-based assessment specifically is for this assignment, right? And this will be kind of similar to all the assignments that we have, will be kind of labor-based, done through labor-based assessment. And so all the rubrics will be similar to this first one. The overall rubric and description of this can be found on the course documents and startup page. That will have all the information about like the background for labor-based assessment, what it means, and how we are utilizing it in this course. To be successful, do your best to complete all assignments on time, including daily free writes and discussions. If you fall behind, remember that you can utilize the forgiveness policy on the syllabus to catch up. Use the policy to get back on track in the event that you fall behind. Below is the work that you will need to grade to do to get your grade for this unit. So the forgiveness policy is in the syllabus. You have 2 weeks that you can use the forgiveness policy on. Basically the forgiveness policy is, okay, I missed some free writes, or I'm not going to be able to get them done, so you need to email me immediately, right? You can't email me like 3 weeks later and be like, Mr. Jordan, you know, I didn't do those things 3 weeks ago. You know, can I make them up? You need to email me immediately and say, hey, Mr. Jordan, I'm going to make up this work this next week, right, along with the work that's due this week. The reason why I don't suggest that you do that is because it adds to extra work, right? You might have to do that extra work on the weekends, right? That may be the only time you're doing the weekly work on the weekends, is if you kind of miss that time. But if you do need that, that's there, right? And it's there to so you have that kind of leeway if things happen, or if you're just being overwhelmed, or you're working through other classes. If you are overwhelmed, I suggest that you email me anyways, so we can try to work something out. I had the forgiveness policy in there because I need to have that in the syllabus so I can officially give that to you. But also, I'm a fairly understanding teacher, and so I want you to email me, right? But if you're constantly emailing me and you'll be like, everything is going to be late every single week, right? The forgiveness policy, you only have those 2 weeks. So make sure that either we're having some kind of constant conversation, or that you're keeping up with your work, right? And I would prefer that you keep up with your work. I think it will be more difficult, right, if you kind of fall behind and you have to use the forgiveness that forgiveness policy, but it's there to protect you, right? It's there to protect you. And so you don't feel like, oh man, I missed out on 1 week, I'm just going to fail. No, you're not going to fail, right? You're not going to fail. Use that forgiveness policy, but don't abuse that forgiveness policy. And that goes for all the papers. So for this last thing, we're going to kind of look at, this video will probably be, I guess, probably around 25 minutes. So if you need to take a break, go ahead and pause it now. Look at my cat walk by. Go ahead and pause it now, and you know, and then come back. It will talk about the rubric for getting the grade that you want. Okay, so for an A in writing a narrative, which is 90 to 100% credit, that requires a completed first draft, so you have to turn in a first draft to me. 2, a completed revised draft incorporating feedback both from the Writing Center and your instructor. I need to change that. It won't be from the Writing Center. That's for my concurrent enrollment class. It will be from your peer review. So I will go in and change that. So you don't need to go to the Writing Center, though you can, and I encourage you to if you feel like you need that. But the feedback that will matter for the A will be from the peer review and from your instructor, right? And maybe I'll have changed that by the time you see this video. So if you see me kind of going on and on about it and it's already changed, you know, that's how it is. When I was making this video, I realized, you know, that it still says Writing Center. So a completed revised draft, that means that you turned in your first draft. I've given you notes back on it, your peer is giving you notes back on it, and you have changed the original draft according to those notes and according to your own feelings of like what needs to change too. Maybe you notice something that I don't notice or your peer doesn't notice, but you feel like needs to change, then change that also, right? It's always good to do some self-reflection and self-revising, right? As a poet, so much of my work is that kind of self-revising, me going back and just saying, okay, this doesn't quite work, and changing it on my own, right? So that's a good skill to have for any kind of discipline, but especially for writing. So the third part of getting an A in the writing a narrative is a 500-word reflection statement explaining the revisions you did between the first and final draft. So this is going to be the main way of how you differentiate an A from a B is going to be this 500-word reflection, just kind of telling me, okay, what did you change and why did you change it, right? The important thing for me is that you know why you change something, right? Or you feel like you have an understanding of the difference between your original draft and your revised draft, right? Or your final draft. That to me is what writing is really about, right? Deciding. There's a famous essay by Anne Lamott called "Shitty First Drafts." And it's true that all first drafts are usually not good, or they may be good but not great, right? So there always needs to be a revision. Well, the purpose of this class is, okay, how do we do that revision? And do you know why you're making those changes, right? That's going to be one of the main skills. And that's going to go for all different kinds of things. I mean, one of the great things about science is like, okay, we messed up, or this experiment didn't quite work, so how do we make it different, or why did it not succeed, right? And so it's the same for writing, right? The first draft is going to be, you're just going to maybe just be getting ideas on the page, or maybe you have some fairly good ideas, but how do you refine them to make the best that they can be? Right, and that will be the difference between an A paper and a B paper. Will be that 500-word reflection on that. And then number 4 is completed most free writing prompts and discussion question prompts for the unit. May have missed one, right? So if you miss more than one, you're going to have to use like forgiveness on that. So your weekly assignments, free writes, all those different things will count towards your final grade on the paper, right? So make sure that you're doing those. They're there to help you, and they're there to lots of times take some of the work of just typing out a draft real quick the night before, right? A lot of the assignments and free writes are designed so you can get your ideas on paper and perhaps just maneuver those into the draft, or start drafting early, right? To make it more modular. For a B in writing a narrative, and this is going to be the same for most of the assignments, a completed first draft, a completed revised draft, incorporating feedback, and then a complete most free writing prompts and discussion question prompts for the unit. May have missed no more than 2, right? So may have missed no more than 2. So if I go in and see that you've missed, 3, that's going to lower the grade down to a C, right? So you need to make sure that you're doing those weekly assignments and that you're not falling behind. And if you are, contacting me or using that forgiveness, using that forgiveness policy. If you have any questions about that, make sure to ask. For a C in writing a narrative, a completed first draft, a completed revised draft, and you attempted to revise in some way, but you may have submitted too late to receive feedback from your instructor or your peer. So if you're not quite getting to the peer review, or you turn it in late, that's going to knock it down from a B to a C, right? Because even though this class is built to be flexible, we still have to have guidelines, and we still have to have times that things are due, right? It makes it easier on you, it makes it easier on me, and also that's the nature of the world, that things are usually due at a certain time, or things are usually have to get done by a certain time, right? It's going to be the same for this class. And then a D, which hopefully I shouldn't have any Ds, a first draft of some kind, student never received revised or maybe incomplete. So if you don't revise at all, you just turn in one draft, that's going to be a D. And you complete at least one free writing prompt or discussion question. So if you get at least one done, you'll get a D instead of an F. A student will receive an F. And this is basically going to be the same for all the assignments, if they did not complete a draft of any kind. This could be anywhere from 59% to no credit, depending on if the student did a partial draft or did some free writing prompts or discussion questions. So if you don't do any of the free writing prompts and discussion questions, and you don't turn any in a draft, or you turn in like a one-page draft, right? If you don't turn any of the draft in, you're going to get a 0. If you turn in like one page of the draft, you may get like, if it's the 200-point assignment, you may get, I don't know, 10 or 20 points, right? I don't want to have to do that, but make sure that you're turning in those drafts. Make sure that you're actually doing the work, right? Because of the way that this class is built, I don't think anybody should have trouble with at least getting some kind of draft in. But if you are, make sure to speak to me before it gets to the point to where I'm grading the papers and I have to give you an F, right? The earlier you can get to me about that, the better. So now, real quickly, I'm going to go over some of the, and if you have any questions about any of the stuff we went over, then make sure to email me and ask. Now I'm going to go over a few of the this next link under the module section, writing a narrative content week 1, where I'm going to kind of real quickly. So I guess this video may be around 30 minutes. If you need to take another break, you can go ahead now. Okay, so click on under modules, writing a narrative content week 1. These are the goals. By the end of this week, students should be able to define and describe narrative as well as its key features. 2, identify key features of narrative in a sample text. And 3, create a list of potential narratives to write about for Unit 1. So to reach these goals and get full credit for the work this week, students should complete the following by 11:59 p.m. Oh, this Sunday. I put this Sunday. So the start of the time for this will be Monday to 11:59 Sunday, and then the next week, we'll be starting then on Monday again. So you have to get all of this done by 11:59 p.m. this Sunday, being Sunday what would that be, the 24th? Something like that, 23rd. Sorry, I off the top of my head, I don't have a calendar right in front of me. So the things that you need to do is listen to the video lecture for this week, so you're hopefully doing that right now. Read the chapter Writing a Narrative, chapter 13 from Everyone's an Author. You should have access to Everyone's an Author. If you do not, then make sure to email me. It should just be the textbook at the top of the modules. Read Raya El Fidel Kierbeck's, I'm not sure for sure how the pronunciation of the last name, but at the VA, Healing the Doctor-Patient Relationship within Everyone's an Author, which starts on page 202. You should be able to search that in the book since it's an ebook. Complete Writing a Narrative Free Writing Prompts 1 and 2. Complete Writing a Narrative Discussion Questions 1. And Complete Writing a Narrative Task 1. So there will be 2 readings really, and then 2 free writes, a discussion question, and a task. So all those things need to be done by Sunday at 11:59, right? If you have any questions about the free writing prompts, about the narrative discussion, about the narrative task, then make sure to contact me, right? So I think that's it for this week. I will have a new video for next week. Sometimes it might be me. Sometimes it might be Dr. Daniel. For the most part, since this is my non-concurrent class, it'll probably be videos with me. Hopefully you didn't have any trouble hearing me. If there's any kind of issues with that, then make sure to contact me. Yeah, and if you're having any other issues, make sure that you get into contact me as early as possible, right? And let me know what's going on. Like I said before in my introductory video, I don't need to know all the details of things, but if you feel like you need a little bit of help, or you're not understanding something, or you have questions, make sure to contact me, whether that be through the Discord server that I will hopefully have set up by the time you see this video, or just through email or through some other service that we kind of work out. Okay, have a great week. If you need to talk to me, and I will have another video for you next week.